Well, hello there everyone, it's Nina. Thanks for joining me today for another video. I hope you like glitter. I certainly do. And I was really excited to play with the new Tim Holtz Distress Rock Candy Glitter. Not only do we have our classic favorite, Distress Rock Candy, that's a tried and true and staple in my craft space. But now we have a new addition to the rock candy collection, and that is the chunky rock candy glitter, and it is a dream. I absolutely love it. I can't wait to continue using this, not only for the holiday season that's upcoming, but also just year round. And that's the card that I'm going to be sharing today, is an all year kind of card. It's bright, happy, and full of rainbows. So why don't we dive on in and create this card, and I'll show you some fun techniques that I use to create with the glitter. So there is a new stamp set from Simon Says Stamp's STAMPtember release called Curvy Background. It is such a fun design, really cool to be able to use for a standard background, but you can also color it to create fun effects. I'm going to color on top of some distress watercolor paper, which has a smooth and also textured side. I want to use the smooth side for today just because I don't want to have any texture for my coloring. I'm going to lay the curvy background into my Misty tool, and then my watercolor paper with the smooth side facing up is laid inside on top of a tacky mat so it won't shift. I did prep the surface of the paper with my Simon Says Stamp powder tool before bringing in my embossing ink. I'm going to stamp this with embossing ink so I can put some white embossing powder over top. We're going to be doing some watercolor resist. Now, for those of you that aren't interested in watercoloring, this is actually a really easy, forgiving, and super fun technique. So I hope you'll keep an open mind and see how this comes together, because you don't need to really color with any skill. So it's really easy and, in my opinion, a lot of fun. So I've stamped that background. I did stamp it twice just to make sure I got all the areas, because you can't see the embossing ink. It's kind of one of those, you hope you got it all. But this background is kind of loose with its style, so if I did miss a spot, it's really going to not show. And then I'm going to take my heat tool and set the powder so that way I can start working on coloring and create that fun emboss resist. You could do the same thing with ink blending if you wanted to. If you don't want to go watercolor, you want to actually just do some ink blending, you could go ahead and take your inks and just create that same embossed resist. For my watercoloring, I've picked out my favorite Daniel Smith and Winsor & Newton watercolors that I keep on an old egg plate. This is my favorite paint palette. So I have a lot of Daniel Smith and Winsor & Newton paints, but on the egg plate, that's where I keep the ones that I use the most, which is really nice because they reactivate really well, and the center of the plate is a great mixing well. I found this at an antique store, and it's such a great, useful tool. To color this background, it is so simple. That was one of the key things I wanted to point out during the coloring, is I'm just following the background pattern with my watercoloring. And of course, the emboss resist is allowing us to see those fun stripes from the design. As the watercolor goes over it, it resists the paint that's going on top. But this coloring technique is so forgiving because you don't have to have any skill in coloring this. You can just put down color and let it flow where you want. It's looking a little messy to start, but we're gonna go back over it to help smooth things out. I'm just trying to get the color blocked out onto my background, and I do want things to mix and overlap. So as I put color down, I'm putting the next color kind of over top of that first color. And we're gonna fill this background up with all of these colors that I've picked out and basically create a little bit of a rainbow here. Once I had the base done, then I came back in with more color, and I'm going back over those same areas. This is going to help blend things out and really smooth the transition between each color. I'm also trying to put down a little bit more extra color for this, and I am letting some areas skip from the first application so that way I get some variety in the color tone. So we'll have some areas that are a little lighter and some that are a little darker. If you have some spots where you feel like you need to do a little cleanup, you can come in with a dry brush and just go over some of those areas to smooth out the transition between the colors. So here's my background as it's starting to dry. I'll set this aside and let it dry completely before we move on to the next part of the process. While that was drying, I brought in the new Distress Rock Candy Glitter, the chunky version, and I want to show you here how it compares to the original. You can see that the particles of this glitter are a lot bigger and it catches the light so beautifully. It's like a magical sparkle. I'll spread this out onto some black cardstock so that you can really see how this glitter looks in its original form. It's gorgeous as is, and it will create beautiful frosty finishes on your projects. But you can also color this glitter to give a really unique effect. So I'm going to color my chunky glitter with some Dixie cups. I pulled these out of the bathroom, and I'm going to fill each of them with a small amount of the chunky glitter. You don't need to do a lot all at once. And honestly, I'm going to have leftovers from this project so I can save them for future. I've picked out some bright alcohol inks from my stash that I thought would work well to color each of these samplings of glitter. I'm putting a few droplets inside of my Dixie cup with the glitter, and then taking a silicone spatula, I'm just going to stir this around to get that color mixing. This dries pretty quickly because we are using an alcohol ink to apply the color. Alcohol evaporates and dries very quickly, so you should have dry glitter in a matter of a half an hour at the most, depending upon the humidity in your area. So when I was working on this, we actually were having very dry days here on Cape Cod. So our humidity was super low, and this dried, I would say, within a few minutes. But if you're in a more humid environment, you may find that it takes a little bit longer to dry, but it won't take that long. I'm coloring each one of these with the alcohol inks, and I'm making sure to give them a really good stir to get that moving. You might see the alcohol ink start to clump a little bit. It will spread and even out amongst your glitter the more you stir. You just want to give it a really, really good stir. And I'm just cleaning my silicone spatula in between each of these stirrings so I don't contaminate the next color. So as you can see, I have quite the rainbow here, and this is going to be so much fun to apply over top of our watercolored background. And these glitters are great for saving for future projects because, again, you're not going to be using a ton of glitter for this project, so having some extra on hand is always nice because you can refer to it for future use. So now that I have all my glitters ready to go, I can start working on applying the glue that I need for my project. You can use pretty much any glue you'd like that's going to hold. I prefer something that's going to be clear so I can see through the adhesive to the background. And of course, because we used alcohol ink, with this clear glitter, we're going to be able to see through both of those as well. So all of this is going to give a very nice transparent finish to our project. I had some collage medium on my desk from another project, so I just grabbed that for this, but you could also use glossy accents as well. Either one is a good choice. I'm going to go ahead and spread that glitter across my project, getting it into the adhesive. Then I used my paintbrush to apply another area of that collage medium. I want to brush this on so it's a thin application. I don't want this to be super clumpy. I'm using the pink next, so I'm going over any of the areas that I want to have the pink glitter. I'm trying to keep the color of the glitter matched up with the color on my background. So now I applied the pink glitter. That's looking super cute, and then I'll just go ahead and spread that around with my finger, tap off any excess, and then let it dry. And I'm not waiting for the different sections of my background to be dry before I apply the next area of glitter. I'm just being careful not to go back over an area with my wet glue to reactivate or move any of the glitter that's already sitting there and drying. So I'm just being careful as I apply. And then anything that is not quite fully adhered, once this background is dry, I'll actually go back over it with a dry fan brush and just brush off any excess. Because there are some pieces here that are not fully adhered to this background, and so just to keep things clean, I went ahead and brushed off the extra. Look at how that's already picking up the light. It's gorgeous. But I just love how this beautiful transparent glitter that is now colored really enhances our background and is creating such a gorgeous crusted candy finish to our card. This ends up looking so amazing, and I was literally giddy with excitement seeing this all come together. You can see that this background is not 100% covered, but it's pretty close. And that was the look I was going for. I didn't want it to be perfect, but I also wanted it to be pretty saturated. So I'm going to set that background aside, and we're going to work on adding some fun elements that'll go on top of the card. I'm going to pull out this stamp set here. This is called Birthday Blitz. It was in the Simon Says Stamp September card kit, but it's also available on its own. If you're watching this later and the September card kit is no longer available, I loved the sun in this stamp set, and there are coordinating dies, by the way. I'm going to stamp the sun with 2 different colors of yellow ink. I'm starting first with Lemonade. It's a really nice light yellow color. And I'm going to use my cube for this just because I had it on my desk still from another project. I'll stamp that down, and that's going to give me these nice light colored rays. Then I want to stamp the center of the sun, but I want this one to be a little darker. So I'm going to actually use the next color up, which is Sunbeam. This is part of the same trio. It's Lemonade, Sunbeam, and Citrine as the trio of inks from this color collection. But I stamped that twice, so I got a really nice rich impression. That gave me a darker center, which looks great. It pops. And then I want to stamp a smiley face from the stamp set onto that as well. So for this, I used VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink from Simon Says Stamp. Stamped that in the middle, and he looks so cute. Then I'm going to bring in the coordinating die, line this up, and die cut the sun so I can put this on top of my colorful background. After die cutting, I then brought in that same Lemonade ink we stamped with, but I'm going to use it to ink blend around the edges of the sun just to soften it up a little bit and hide a little bit of that white. I felt like there was too much white for that sun to be on top of my background, and it was a bit distracting. So by softening it up with a little bit of tone-on-tone ink blending, that created the perfect effect for the sunshine, and it'll really look natural on top of the background. For the sentiment for my card, I'm actually going to use this smile die from CZ Design. I'm cutting it from some of this gorgeous blue glitter cardstock. Again, like I said, this card is covered in glitter, so everything about this project has some sort of sparkle to it. I'm going to also use the shadow layer so that way it stands off nicely from my background, and it'll also give it some separation from the sun. Speaking of the sun, I did want to embellish it just a little bit with some glitter. So you could use a paintbrush for this, but I'm being lazy. I'm just going to dab some collage medium onto the sun, just around the very edges, and that's going to give me a good place to be able to sprinkle some of the original rock candy glitter. I thought this would be just a perfect little accent to the embellishment, plus then it won't stand out as the one item that doesn't have glitter on it. So bringing in that classic rock candy glitter, I could have used yellow, I could have colored this, but I decided to go with more of a frosted effect, kind of like sugar coated, and I like that. I thought it was cute. So that was a perfect little finishing detail for my sun. Back to the greeting, I'm going to stack one layer of white cardstock smile behind the glitter layer, just so that way it has a little bit of lift off of that shadow layer. I just wanted something so it was not completely flat onto that shadow. I used tweezers to help me put the sentiment down, but then for the little dot above the eye, the tittle, I just brought in my wax embellishment wand and placed the 2 tittles on top of each other on top of the shadow layer. We're in the home stretch now, so I'm going to start adhering things together, starting with the sun. He's going to go up in the top left corner of my card. This is, by the way, a side folding card. And then the smile sentiment, I did put 2 layers of foam tape behind it, and that's going to get stacked up at an angle underneath the sun. Then the background is going to get adhered onto my A2 card using some foam tape. And I know this card is bulky, but I do love the different layers of dimension that the foam tape gives for your card. So I just always will end up putting in a card like this in a bubble mailer, or this is the type of card I might give to somebody in person. But you could definitely cut down on the bulk and not adhere everything with foam tape. So what you're seeing me do right now is dig through a pile of sentiments that I made from a previous card project. This was made with the new Simon Says Stamp Easy Strips Banners dies. And the stamps are from the CZ Design Easy Strips Here For You stamp set. I loved these greetings. I thought they were perfect for adding to a variety of different cards, and sending good vibes just went so well with this card. I love having sentiments already pre-made and done that I can just reach for from my stash, so that was super helpful to have that greeting already done. Again, it was from another card project. I'll link to it in the top right corner of this video. And now I'm just going to go ahead and put a few of these fun golden hour sequins onto my card, following that trail that the background has, letting it overlap a little bit with the sun just so it feels like it's connected. And look at that shine. I just get so excited watching that card sparkle. I have it actually sitting on my desk here because it's just making me so happy. I don't know who I'm going to send it to, but right now it's making me smile. So I really excited about this new Rock Candy Chunky Glitter. If you like glitter like I do, I think you're going to have so much fun playing with this glitter. So you can find the glitter over at Simon Says Stamp. I'm going to link to that in the video description along with all the other products that I'm using today. You can also find details, pictures of the links, and pictures of my cards also on my blog. So link to that is down below as well if you're watching this on YouTube. I hope you got something out of this video. I hope you were inspired by the card, that you enjoyed watching all of this glittery goodness come together, because this was a card that truly made me happy and I couldn't wait to share it with you all. So I hope you enjoyed. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate that you watch my videos, so thank you so much that you do. Well, friends, until I see you again, which will be very soon, I hope you have a very wonderful day. I'm sending you good vibes, and I will see you again in the next video.